Okay, so welcome everyone on our April online meetup of the Customer Experience Professional Association, and especially for the Hungarian network. We have a wonderful guest, Dalla Riva, today, giving a keynote on how to position CX in the agenda of the top leaders. So the reason why we thought that it is an interesting topic for our community, because at the end of the last year, we had a survey, and strategy was a very important element of what is in the interest of the community members. And also during the CX day, we had a workshop where we were ideating how could we have a positive impact on the customer experience maturity of Hungary. And in many cases, the key was to involve and to position CX in the agenda of the C-level leaders. So when I was thinking about whom should we invite, immediately Monica was my first choice, because I had the opportunity 2 years ago to have a discussion with her at Deutsche Telekom, and I really enjoyed the discussion, and she is really a role model for CX leaders, and her results are very impressive. So let me introduce Monica. She is the Senior Vice President of Design and Customer Experiences at Deutsche Telekom, but she was also the head of function of the European Design Center at Riva, the strategic design manager at Samsung, and she's also a professor and lecturer in several universities. So I think she is really someone who worth to listen to. So in the next 13 minutes, Monica will share her experience and results with us. And I would like to ask you to please be active in the chat panel, send your questions, your thoughts, and after the 30 minutes keynote session, Monica will answer to the questions. Unfortunately, she needs to leave after the Q&A session, but we will stay for group discussions around the keynote and the ideas we collected during the presentation. So, Monica, please start your presentation.
Thank you very much. And first of all, thank you everyone for joining and taking the time to listen. So I will try to deliver to you some lesson learned, I would say, in these years that I've been working in different companies, and a little bit also what is happening now in the last years. As Christina was mentioning, I joined Deutsche Telekom 3.5 years ago, and Deutsche Telekom is one of the biggest companies that we do have in Europe, but also in the international and the global setups. So we can just say some numbers is a 108 billion revenue with 240 million customers around the world. So we say 50 countries. So it's a huge company. It's not just about telco, it's also about IT and much more. So this tells a lot about the enormity of technology that is implied, and technology people that are working to make sure that the company is always on the top of the technology, but also to serving better the proper customers. I would like to share with you a story, at least some learnings that I got. And just let me start with the presentation, and let me see if you see that. So the first step that I want to share with you is that and probably you know better than me, if you're dealing with customer experience, you know that is a constant change. And change is the only part that every one of us has to deal every single day. But in customer experience role is even more complex to do it. Um, One of the things that I've learned, especially during my career, is that every company I've been working, and Christina's mentioned, I'm Italian, by the way. I started in an American company of home appliances, and I'm a designer by education. So I grew up not really wanting to do home appliances for sure, but I ended up to learn a lot about customer experience in a field that enter in the home of the people in different countries in different world. Just imagine that a washing machine is in the same washing machine design for a European country goes in the bathroom in Italy, in the kitchen in France, in the basement in Germany, and sometimes in the balcony in Russia. So can you imagine how complex it is to design a product that has so many spaces and different attitudes, right? So this is something that I learned very early in my career, like designing with in my head exactly how I could fulfill the customer's needs. And this is something that changed in every company I moved. Then I moved to Samsung Electronics. This was many years before we can say that Samsung is the Samsung of today. Of course, I was part of a digital transformation, or actually mobile phone transformations. I joined a company in a moment where customers wanted to have phones and just to making calls. And during that year, I took part also the project of the Galaxy One. If you remember the first smartphone, I learned that Nokia was my best and my first competitor in the market. And 4 years later was not in the picture anymore. So it was incredible shocking for me, that experience, because it told me that if you don't understand what customer really wants, you can be out of business very quickly. Out of that, I learned a lot when I moved then from a science company, material science company, 3M. You might know that for post-it notes and scotch tape, but I can tell you there is much more. I was into B2B customer experience. So after two B2C companies, I really got deep into healthcare business, OEMs, automotive industry, aerospace, all industries that had customers, but their goal was, how could I make an impact on my customers' customers? So even more complex to think, what's next? And now I am a DT, and I never been in a telco before. So, well, I was not even in material science and consumer electronics before. But this tells that change is constant. And the only thing all these companies have in common is that all of them have customers. And most of the time are the same people that buy the phone, the washing machine, the car, and probably even an internet connection. But we see them from a different aspects. So one of the things that I always start is with this sentence that is from 1954. So it's not very new, but it's exactly the essence why we need to do customer experience inside a company, because customer is the foundation of the business and it keeps it in existence. If we don't have customers, we don't have a company. So I think this was one of the first messages that I really brought into every organization I've been working on customer experience, because it gets to the root why we need to talk about the customer. But it's not just that. It's also about that everything starts with the needs. And there are two main needs: the needs of the customer and the needs of the organization. And what I learned is that how could I be impactful in the agenda of the top management, bringing the topic about the customers, was exactly about that, learning to understand the needs of the people I was talking to and the needs of the customer and try to match them. Yeah, sometimes when I was talking to executives about customer experience, they were like that. Oh no, she's here again. And she's not leaving us, right? So, and as I'm a person that don't give up and they know very well. So it's like, okay, look, we don't have time for this. But on the other hand, this was also one aspect I ask myself, what do they have in their head? What really worries them? How can I link their fears for the business with the fears that I have to missing out on the customer? And this was a very important connection that I made, in the sense that I tried to really reconnect my story and my importance from not only what I wanted to deliver to the people in the room, but also how my message could help them to solve their own problems. And this was a very important part. The second part was about building an anti-silos culture. What does it mean? Every company, and every company I've been working, bigger it was, there was a natural division in groups because of interests or skill set, like the engineering group, the design group, where I'm leading actually the team, and the customer experience group, and then you have the finance group, and then you have HR. Everyone is super busy on doing their best for the customer. And they really are committed to that. But I realized that we were looking at that from different angles. And we were in a conversation that looked like I'm right and you're wrong. Instead, I try to really flatten the anti-silos culture and bring it there all together. I started to talk about it's a collaboration things. Customer experience is not a department. To me, it's a culture. And the first thing when you enter in your new role, especially when you're an executive, they give you always less time to be impactful, right? So, and it's very normal in every company. One thing that I had to realize was that how can I make this happening as a huge transformation if I don't find really good allies? And so one of the first things I try to do is connecting with people and try to understand what they were doing before I joined in customer experience, and why this was effective and why this wasn't effective in several parts. I learned some points. In my case, one of the problems was that the vision was too far away. What does it mean? It was perceived as fuzzy, as too long term. While we were just discussing that in the goal of the leaders, there was a midterm, short midterm. Of course, the long term is important, but also the short term has an impact to sustain the long term. So that was exactly what I tried to understand. Okay, I need to build a strategy, but probably my strategy should be very resilient because there will be a lot of pushback. And at the same time, should be split it in small steps. The small steps helps to build trust, and trust is the most important coin that you can have in a company. What does it mean, trust? Trust, first of all, was about that I was not going to talk about the next 5 years without delivering in the short term. The second step was that trust that I knew what I was talking about, but that I was able to bring from my side also some other people that wanted to join my mission. And the trust was also about communicating with very effective way that not everything is going to be done immediately. So being very pragmatic, but that the energy resulted in quick wins was going to sustain a long-term strategy. So I just had a very good meeting and I said, okay, if this is the strategy, if you want to join me, I will be very happy. And this was an open call to a lot of departments I've been talking to. And if you don't want to join me, at least don't stop me. And this was a different paradigm, right? So I was not asking to have support or things. Say, okay, let me do it. Let me try. Give me the space. And then I will come back with some other parts. The journey is on. It means that it takes a long time. Making a customer experience company is not a thing of one day. It takes years and it's a bumpy road. And sometimes it goes up and then it goes down again. But being sure that it's a journey, so it takes time to arrive to the end goal, it's what gave me a lot of energy to not give up on the first problem. The trust from the top is essential. If you don't have trust from the top, I don't think any initiative can really run on a corporate level. But the energy to sustain this should come from the bottom. And this is very important. When the outline of the strategy is clear, then You need people that want to commit to make this happening. And at the end, it's in small programs that this is happening. It's not, as I mentioned, in one big program. There is a lot of programs. In my organization, I immediately started to run researches on ethnographic studies, for example. That's part of our jobs. But instead of doing in my department and say then, okay, I will send you the results, what we did is that we involved a lot of stakeholders and partners from the business, from the finance department, from different parts of the company with a clear goal. The process of doing this was enabling the full organization to understand better the customer, to getting closer to the customer. Even inviting them to talk to the customer was a very important part. The other part is like take time and breath. What does it mean? We cannot overload people with the thousands of concepts and assuming that people can change in one day. It takes time, and this process of education needs to be also planned and designed. The pragmatism comes also from the point that there is a need to be very specific in the communication we want to do. I give you an example. If you want to make very specific that customer experience is important in your organizations, you need to understand also which is the type of customers you want to serve and how you want to make an impact to them. But knowing them is the first step. Without that, it's very difficult that the company will feel the pain of the customer. And you know very well, because if the customer don't put their own pain inside the company, it's very hard that this will be solved or this will change. The positive mindset was the other second part. Customer experience many times have a way to say like, we should do it, we have to do it. It's all a duty. While turning this into it's a pleasure to serve customers in a different way, change completely the discussion. And how this is a pleasure, it's also very important to be very specific. It's a pleasure for the way we deliver the messages. It's a pleasure for the... There is someone on, can you go on mute, please? Thank you. So there are different aspects on that in all the journey of the customer that goes from the voice connection with the customer. It goes with the face-to-face in the shop. It goes with the omni-channel, with the digital product. It goes with the delivery of the product itself. And all of these aspects are run and delivered by different departments. So having a positive mindset that every one of us has an impact on this and making aware in the room of every single stakeholders that they are in charge of this and not someone else in another office, it's very important. One of the things is also, and it's very difficult, but sometimes it needs to be done, is to bring a perspective. Do you remember when you were learning how to go by bicycle? Well, actually, this was the timing where I dropped many times, but I didn't give up because that was so important. This is a kind of metaphor that can really be done for what concerns the way you approach also stakeholders, right? So it's also saying to them, look, let's try this initiative. It doesn't cost you too much, but if we succeed, we will create an incredible energy in the room and we are going to change the perspective of our customers. And step by step, this is going to change and to build abilities, like going on a bicycle, right? So also this pragmatism. I tend to always to have this double effect. 60% of the projects should be on the short term and 40% is on the long term. Why? Because while I'm delivering today, I can gain the trust and the commitment from the rest to keep going on the strategy. And one of the most successful part for me is when other people in the company take really with pride the topic of customer experience in their own departments and transfer them in different areas. Why sometimes we are blocked? This is a very important learning I got. And actually being a designer in a tech company driven mainly by engineers, it's already helps. Sometimes it depends on the language we use. If today I will start to speak Italian to you on this presentation, you probably will get partially through my slides something, but you probably will not get all the words because I'm speaking my language and you speak another one. But exactly the reason why we speak all in English is because it's a language that is common and both of us we understand. So the first thing I try to do when I try to speak with a stakeholder, especially in the business, is try to understand their language and translate whatever I want to transfer as a concept on customer experience into a language of the business. That could be KPIs, revenue, money, but can always be also on a long-term sustainability topics for the company. It's not just about talking about ourselves. It's more translating this for audiences that maybe sometimes they are not fully aware about all the different way we can handle customer experience. One story that I can tell, it was a meeting and I was just new in my job and there was a big meeting and I was very enthusiastic to join the company and having this new role and everything. And in that moment, I realized that during the meeting, the customer were named 2 times in, I would say, 1 day or 2-day meetings. And this shocked me like hell, because actually I went back and I had a conversation with senior leader and say like, well, actually you are pretending to me to fulfill this role, but how can I make it if you are the first not to name the customer more than 2 times in 2 days? I will not make it. And that was exactly what I put it on the table. It's a shared responsibility. It's not just mine because I got a job title with customer experience on that. So, and plus was more, a company was much more known by the senior management than a new person joining a company. So also sharing the responsibility, it makes also to be very clear on the way we want to be. But if I can tell you, if you speak a very strange language where there is everything you want to put there as, because there should be an experience or a customer experience, this will end up in a completely loss of trust. At least is my, and also loss of interest. And this is very interlinked. Trust and interest goes together in the moment in which we see that this is bringing an advantage to do something better, to improve the way we do things. The other part that is very important to me to share is that I always ask myself one part. If I enter in a room, in a meeting room, and there is a big problem, I always ask myself, I'm part of the problem or the solution. What does it mean? It's a way of thinking. Do I want to drop something on the table and saying, okay, customer experience is a problem or customer experience is an opportunity? And the way you position these two discussions will drive completely to the two different outcomes. The approach is most of the time, let me allow this. Sometimes it's victimism, right? It's like, oh no, they don't understand us. They don't think customer experience is important. And it's so important why they cannot see these things, right? So, and that's exactly the moment in which I say, okay, probably this is being part of a problem because I'm just adding something on top without bringing a solution. On the other hand, if I'm bringing to the discussion a saying where I say, what if we do this and that? Because we'll have an impact at the end on the customer. And this will demonstrate that we are getting in the right direction, or the worst thing can happen, we are learning about how customer thinks about these initiatives. There is always a very different approach to a solution proposed to make something out of a topic versus to bring a wiki problem. This, I think it's a very important part. And this is very much linked with courage. Courage to raising our hands and propose something that, yes, can go well or not. But if it's really calculated, usually that doesn't harm the company, right? So can only improve because there will always be some learning behind that. But also the courage to raise their hands with some senior leaders, say, okay, are we really taking the right decision for the customer in this moment? Because sometimes we are all really busy in our daily business and we end up to focusing ourselves in, okay, I need to finish today, tomorrow is starting Easter, my kids are coming back in 2 hours, I need to do this. And like me, all the executives have a family and have other business and other things to think. And probably in the moment I'm presenting, and sometimes happened to me, I was sharing with Christina, there are people that are so overwhelmed with a bigger problem. In that moment, they are not listening to you, not because they're bad people, just because they are overwhelmed by a lot of complexity. But also being customer centric means knowing and being empathetic with the person you have in front of you, even if it's someone that is your colleague or is an executive leader. That's exactly where you let them experience the customer experience itself, right? So timing is very important, and the courage also to drop off. If you see that someone is not listening to you, don't insist. That's, I know it sounds very common sense. I'm not joking, but actually it happens to me. I was with a senior leader. I saw that he was probably thinking of a bigger problem, and I was very clear. I said, look, if you don't have time today, we can reschedule our meeting. But I didn't come here for doing a PowerPoint. Either we do something that is making impact, or we can move the meeting for both of us. And that was much more appreciated than giving my full speech, even though I knew that was very hard to then reschedule our meeting, but better to be transparent on that, if you believe in that. Learning while doing. This is my favorite one, maybe because I'm a designer by education and by profession, but actually, I don't think that we can preach or do presentations if we don't then are the first one in making our hand dirty, right? So really entering in projects, really going to talk to the customers and convincing some of the executives to come with us. I'm so happy when I have the chance to do some programs. We have one that's called Customer Cafe. We invite customers and we ask them a lot of questions about what they think about the project that we are running, or we ask a lot of conversations, and we invite all executives to join us, to be a spectator or to be there to ask customers some questions. It's one of these programs that has been very much rewarded in DT. After 1 year that we had it, we won the Team Award. That is a very well-known award in the company to be one of the most impactful for delight our customers. But that's exactly one small example that helped people that don't have in their daily job the opportunity to speak with customer, to get closer. And the other part is like really getting deeper into data and transfer them in a simple way to people so that they can use this data from the customer. It happens to me sometimes that I receive reports from customer research that we do with maybe 300 pages. And then I say to my team, okay, guys, I love details and you know very much, I love to get in depth, but unfortunately, due to my job and my timing, you need to make some summaries for me. And if you need to make some summaries for me, imagine that from even other senior leaders, you need to make 1 page. And that page, it's so important that you put all your most important things you want them to remember. The other thing is that in one presentation, they will remember 3 things, not more. What do you want that they remember from your customer insights? Only 3 things. Because we are so bombarded from all different information, we cannot have more than 3, right? And that's exactly, it's a fantastic exercise of analysis and cleaning to the core. What is really important for the company to know? Not everything is important. There are different priorities, making sure that you know what is important and absolutely not to miss out. It's very important as well. The other part is building a sustainable culture. Having one CX leader is not enough to transform a company in a customer centricity company in the culture. But building a sustainable energy, making sure that a lot of people knows about your topic, that feel the wish to join you, and do things to improve the customer experience is exactly the energy you need to run the things for other things. And there is one thing that every employee want to do and every person want to do is having impact. If you can't have impact, you cannot sustain a culture in customer experience. This is my learning, because this impact then generates new energy, and energy is very much needed for transforming a company. And customer experience is about transforming a company. There are very few companies that are customer centric by default or founded customer centric. All the others are learning how to become this. But that's exactly where I think customer experience people have a big advantage. That's called passion. And loving what you do is exactly what is perceived. One of the things that I am more proud of is not about the projects or the different things, but it's about that when I talk with the other senior leaders, they say, well, we know you have this great passion about customers, right? So, and at the beginning they were laughing about this, like, oh yes, she's coming again, right? So with this customer and things. But after some years, they get in this. And I can tell you this, it's also something that people share and want to join it, because having passion is a positive attitude and enable others to get into this positive attitude and state of mind. So you have an incredible opportunity to bring this passion to the room, and it's without passion it's very hard to change anything. So that's my wish for you. And with this, I think we are on the right timing for closing my small speech. Thank you for listening. I'm open up now for the Q&A and stop sharing.
Thank you, Monica, for your presentation. It was really insightful. And maybe I start with a question. So you shared that you break down the strategy to smaller steps.
Yes.
And what I would be really interested in is, what was the first program you suggested for the organization to try? So what was your entry program?
So my entry program was a program where we did an ethnographic studies in 6 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Was before the pandemic, of course, was exactly when I started. After 3 months, I was in the job. And I really did something that brought the people into the different countries inside the home of the customers. We enter in a lot of home of customers without telling them that we were Deutsche Telekom. We tell them that we were a tech company so that we didn't have any bias. And we asked them a lot of questions about how they use technology, if they can show us their home, which problem do they have with technology, and in general, what was their preferences. This helped us to get a very neutral feedback from the customer point of view without influencing them, and collecting a lot of insights. After the research, we also went in a lot of workshops, and I have to say that before starting the program, I made a lot of network to have all the partners from the European organization, the German organization, the headquarters, the technology part. Every single department was involved. And I asked the stakeholders, if you cannot be there the full time, of course, I'm very much aware, nominate one of your person that can be part of the core team. And we designed the program in a way that we did 2-hour sessions of update every single week for executives, so that they could have the time to participate in these 2 hours. The scope was not only delivering the insights, the scope was that they were learning while we were doing. And this was very good, because I was avoiding to sending them 400 pages of report. So that was an educational program, and in the same time experiential, because they really experiment to be closer to the customer. So it was quite interesting and had a very good effect, because we ended up to have a lot of ideas that then went into the pipeline of designing and creation of products.
Okay, we have a question in the comment. If the ideal world is all the employees are 100% engaged about customer centricity, where are you at the moment in this journey after all these steps? So what is the percentage of engagement you perceive in your organization today?
So it's a very big and interesting question. I can tell you that when I joined, it was almost zero, but I'm not joking. So I was really, I was not aware before taking the role, of course. So I find it out when I was inside the company. So that's not true. There was a lot of already happening, but I would say that was very fragmented. So I tried really to put together all these fragmented organizations in a way that they felt they were one part of the same vision and not in one department at all. Everyone was sitting in their department. So I think with this is really running in this moment. So we are getting better and better. And I don't know how to quantify this honestly. So it's very hard for me to quantify that this is a percentage, but I had um, based myself more in, sorry, I've based myself more in the fact that I see some senior leaders taking over the topic now. And I think this is more important because they set the example at the end. So I think that we are in a very steady move, but I cannot tell you the percentage, honestly, will be very fake from my side.
Yeah. A similar question. Are you measuring the CX maturity in your company?
Honestly, we are not at that level. So, and I came to the point that it's not about the maturity, it's about how diffuse it is and how is prioritized. And to me, this is more important. In this moment, we have a lot of program where it's very much prioritized from top management, even from board managers, board members. So to me, this is more important than to say that how is prioritized in general.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, Krista. Might I jump in with a question? It's Mervyn here.
Yes,
Sure.
sure.
Great. Hi, Monica. Just your point about remembering only a few items that are presented. One of the takeaways that will stay with me, and I'll discuss this with Krista, no doubt, after her holidays, was trust from the top, energy from the bottom, and it's kind of leading on from the point you're just making there. Could you describe for us how you know the trust is present?
Well, the trust is present in the moment where you see, you can measure in two ways. So the trust is there where they don't block you. I don't pretend to have support. It depends a lot of the mindset. To me, it's not important that I have support, but I don't have a roadblock. I say it's good enough to try. Yes, we all agree. Yeah, perfect, right? So if no one is saying, okay, no, you should stop it or you should do it, that I need just that. And to me, this is also something that I try to build. I have a strong network. I have to be honest. I try to keep updated on the program I'm running. I try to have a sense about the trust is there or is not there. And I try to bring a lot of data, not perception or assumptions. So I try to bring things that are relevant for the company, very specific, very punctual on that. Why the energy from the bottom? The energy from the bottom because you don't do things from the top. You envision them, you strategize, but actually without people that then really are fully engaged and they want to drive these things, all your beautiful idea can stay in a PowerPoint if you don't have support from the people that really believe on that, right? So these two things, I think, can one generate the other. As much as top management see that you have trust from the bottom and in energy from the bottom, they see that things are moving and so you're delivering, therefore they believe in you and then you got trust. But a lot is also related to the fact that I did a very pragmatic approach. So I was very much saying, okay, I'm going to do these steps and I'm going to present you the results after each step. So coming back and seeing that this was working, gain trust for the next step, the buy-in for the next, and then from the next and from the next. So that was one of the most important part, I guess.
Thank you, Monica. I was going to use the word pragmatic, and you used it yourself then to describe your answer. It wasn't necessarily the answer I anticipated, but it was a very good one and based in reality. So I like that. The absence of roadblocks is implying that there's trust. That's good. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
We have more questions. you mentioned a goal like changing the perspective of the customer. Could you elaborate a bit on that?
Well, actually, in every company you work, because I cannot say there is one size fits all, you probably will realize, and you make an example. Actually, I would say in an experimental way, ask around your peers or top manager who they think the customer is. This will open your eyes. And I can tell you, I ask the same questions in 4 corporations. They're all big, as you know. Samsung probably is the double of the biggest one, but actually all these are very big. Every time I was asking to entering in a company, I ask, okay, who is your customer? And I got different so the European customers, we got this. When entering the team, and I say, who is your customer? Especially in some innovation area, they say, my customer is the subsidiary. And I was shocked. I say, guys, this is exactly one of the things I never heard in any company. You don't have customers inside the company. Customers outside your buildings and paying your salaries. Even this concept about who is the customer in the language was misleading. So bringing back everyone to realize that, do we agree that the customer sits outside our buildings and pay our bills, and probably they have a life with families and things, and they are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, right? So it's very much a basic thing, but I can tell you, start with the basics and making sure that you have a common ground. The language, remember I was talking about this language. The language is so important. When I enter these meetings and they say, okay, I'm talking about the customer and the customer experience, many times I have a slide where I design in 3 circles. What is customer experience, what is user experience, and what is UI. And because these 3 things are completely different in the aspects, but people don't know that customer experience is the sum of all these things together. So it's also very important that we have this definition of language as well.
Yes. Another question, do you use expected improvements in operational financial KPIs to motivate efforts to improve in customer experience? So it's like a forecast or an estimation of the impact on the operational and financial KPIs.
It depends on which area of the company you are working with. Honestly, there are different KPIs. For example, you have, of course, financial KPIs when you go more from the financial, so from the sales organizations and the customer facing roles and these type of things. But you have different KPIs when you go to the innovation on the headquarters part, right? So it's completely different on this type of aspects. So you need to balance your KPI according to the department you're talking to. This is my learning.
Mm-hmm. Another question, very active audience today, thank you. How would you start a CX transformation program if a company has a long history in different CX programs with different leaders and restarting the program again? What should be the first step?
Well, that's exactly you're depicting my first day in the company when I entered and I found it out that I was not the first leader running CX, but actually this was a lot of leader running before in different parts of the organization, right? So I think my luck was that I was naive and I just run it and I said, okay, look, I do it as I believe is the best way to do it. But to say this, I think that you need to start probably from one area of thought leadership and expertise. In my cases, I started with the design and innovation, starting with the insights of the customers, having a lot of knowledge on how to find out really what the customer think, and from a qualitative way, not just quantitative. Quantitative is already there since a long time, but the qualitative aspects was able to transfer a lot of more knowledge into different areas. And that was for me the right strategy in this case. But I think that depends a lot about the culture and the starting point in which company. Every company is different. This is my learning. So there is not one size fits all. I want to repeat it because I'm Italian. I've been working for 2 American companies, 1 South Korean and 1 German. And none of these are from my culture. So I start always thinking that a company is like a country. You have a written rule and unwritten rules. And really understanding what is the most important 2 or 3 points for the company, you can make the link on how to start this transformation. If it's heavily financial driven, probably you should start really to think and build the case around how you can improve the numbers at the end on the bottom line, right? So, but it's more about the innovation part, that how you can be more innovative than other competitors on a global scale. That's a different topic, right? So start really with what matter most, and don't let people sleep during the night. All executives have something that keep them awake, right? So how can you be part of the solution and not the problem? So don't add more problems. Build a CX that help to solve their problem. If the problem is revenue, build a CX program that help to improve the revenue or reduce cost. If the problem is innovation, then on that direction.